bill, then the hospital said, okay, fine, you have paid this 18 days bill, but what about the future? You don't have any more money, so that, you please take your child. They took the child and went to some public hospital, which these days are so underfunded that the child died. So this couple had actually both lost their child as well as lost their land. Even assuming it is not as tragic a case as this, now, because of privatization of essential services like education and health, everybody, no matter how poor you are, if your brother or sister or child or son or father falls ill, you have to take them to one of these hospitals and you have to pay through your nose. And how do you pay through your nose? Either you get rid of your property or alternatively, which is very common, to cut back on your consumption. Therefore, what you have is, on the one hand, people going to these posh hospitals. On the other hand, they're actually cutting back on their consumption. Now, it's perfectly possible for the Planning Commission to say that, you see, people are becoming better off, they're going to max now. In other words, the fact that they actually go to these big hospitals can then be presented as an improvement in their conditions of life, while that supposed improvement has been forced upon them, and the price they have paid for it is actually a curtailment in their essential intake of food grains. So you find that that there is actually an increase in poverty, but that is being presented as if there is a reduction in poverty, and that's being done because, again, the idea is to bring that epistemic closure so that you can never go outside of the system. Now, if this is the case, then it seems to me that a worker-peasant alliance then becomes essential for fighting neoliberal capitalism. It becomes essential in today's context when there's a crisis. Let me say a little bit about the crisis. For the first time now, we know that under globalization, there is a global mobility of capital, including finance. American multinationals are investing in China, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Bangladesh, etc. So capital is moving from the north to the south. Now, when capital is moving from the north to the south, in the north, wages don't rise because the workers there are really competing against the low-paid workers in the south. In fact, if they went on a strike, for instance, to raise their wages, then the multinational would simply say, all right, I'm going to close down in this plant and open it in Indonesia. So you have a situation for the first time where the workers in the advanced capitalist countries are actually competing against the the underpaid third world workers, the low-paid third world workers. According to a figure that Stiglitz, this Nobel Prize-winning economist, actually estimated, if you look at the real wage rate of a male American worker in 1968 and compare it to the real wage rate of a male American worker in 2011, you find that in 2011 it's marginally lower. Now, it's not as if there has been a steady fall, but there was an improvement, but there has been a fall, and the fall is because of the fact that now capital can move to low-wage countries, and as a result, those workers are competing against the low-wage workers of the third world. Now, you may say, if that is the case, then in the third world, wages should be rising, because after all, a whole lot of activities are coming into the third world. In fact, I remember once I had gone to Spain, and I was talking to a group of trade unions there, and I was talking about unemployment in India. So they were all completely bemused. They say, you have unemployment in India? I thought we have unemployment because all the industry is going to your country. How come you also have unemployment? As a matter of fact, what you find is that not only are the real wages in the north falling because they have to compete against the low wages in the south, in the south they are not rising because, as I mentioned, the primitive accumulation of capital, which gives rise to huge numbers of dispossessed, displaced petty producers coming into the towns to look for jobs, there are no jobs. As a result, there is huge increase in labor reserves, It takes the form of casual employment, intermittent employment, or disguised unemployment, all kinds of things. But fundamentally, there's a huge increase in the number of persons who belong to the labor reserves. This not only reduces their own living standards, but it also implies that the organized workers don't get higher real wages, because obviously their bargaining strength is also greatly weakened. And what is more, trade union movement is thought to get destroyed for a variety of reasons. One is this: if you have casual workers, it's very difficult to organize them into trade unions. Many trade unionists say that in the old days, when you had these factories and workers in those factories, you could have factory gate meetings. When they came out of the factories, you could have large meetings and distribute leaflets and so on. Today, since many of them are casual workers, if a casual worker is even seen taking a leaflet from the hand of a trade unionist, he would be immediately sacked next morning. And as a result, trade unions now, all over the world, by the way, this is happening. That there's a tremendous weakening of trade unions. And this is something which happens because, firstly, capital is mobile. Secondly, the trade unions themselves, that casualization is on the rise. And thirdly, of course, privatization. Trade unions everywhere are more powerful in the public sector. One of the reasons they are still powerful in France, because France is a substantial public sector. But with privatization, they actually tend to become weaker. So you find that that real wages in the north are not rising. If anything, they are falling. Real wages in the south, to which activities are moving in, are also not rising, because the labor reserves are rising despite the activities moving out. So all over the world, real wages are not rising. But on the other hand, labor productivity is rising everywhere. As a result, what happens is that the share of surplus increases. The share of non-wage income in output, surplus increases. That is why inequality is rising. The share of the capitalists and their hangers-on increases in total output. And that basically implies that the upper income groups become better off. Statistically, it would show itself as the upper income groups becoming better off. That's why inequality is rising. But that has an important implication. If you shift a rupee of purchasing power from a worker to, let us say, a surplus earner, the worker would be consuming more or less that whole rupee. But on the other hand, the surplus earner would consume only half of it. Let's say he would put the other half for future consumption, what economists call saving. As a result, every such income distribution shifts reduces demand in the economy. If it reduces demand in the economy, it tends to create a tendency towards overproduction. Such overproduction crisis is a phenomenon, or such potential, or such an overproduction crisis waiting in the wings to reveal itself, is a phenomenon of neoliberal capitalism. It's kept in check because occasionally you have these bubbles, and the bubbles can generate some kind of demand because there is an artificial inflation in your asset prices. Everybody feels wealthier and so on. But with the collapse of the bubble, the crisis manifests itself again, as is the case now. From 2008, we have had a crisis in the world economy which still continues. In this period of crisis, all periods of crisis are conducive to the growth of fascism. In this period of crisis, there is a worldwide upsurge of fascism. What do the fascists do? They do not attribute the crisis to the functioning of the system. They attribute to the crisis to the existence of the other. The Chinese are taking away your jobs. The Mexicans are taking away your jobs. The Muslim migrants are taking away your jobs, and so on and so forth. So fascism in a period of crisis explains the crisis as the encroachment upon the life of the workers by the so-called outsider, or by the other. It is therefore something which is promoted by monopoly, by big capital. Big capital always promotes fascism. Why? Because Fascism, by its very nature, does not blame the system. On the contrary, by blaming the other, it actually tends to take away the attention of the workers from the system itself and deflects it in a different direction altogether. Against this, it is important, therefore, for the left and progressive forces to speak the truth to the workers, to speak the truth and actually organize, work for a worker-peasant alliance in order to bring about a transformation, in order to bring about a transcendence of neoliberal capitalism. The time is very propitious for it. Why? Because, as I said, bubbles are the only thing that might actually revive some activity in world capitalism. For about 6 years in the United States, the recession and unemployment of a huge magnitude continued. Now you are having some revival because there is once more some kind of a bubble in the stock market, but again it's going to collapse. Therefore, we are now in a period of more or less prolonged and protracted, or if you like, period of permanent crisis. If we are in a period of permanent crisis, then we are also in a period of permanent fascist threat. Now, if we are in a period of permanent fascist threat, but fascism cannot overcome the crisis, then it becomes very important for the left that this is an opportunity, but this opportunity has to be seized by providing an alternative that to neoliberal capitalism at this juncture. Bringing Marxism up to date is really to provide an analysis of contemporary world on Marxist lines, beyond what Marx himself or Lenin had said, to bring up, to make Marxism up to date. Why is the left? Why is the left? This is the last point I'm going to make. Why is the left so weakened at the moment all over the world? I mean, if it is the case that there is a crisis, if it is the case that actually there is a permanent crisis and there is no solution to it, the liberal bourgeois establishment does not even recognize it. They think it's only temporary, it disappears. The fascists recognize it, but attribute it to the existence of the other. The fact that they recognize it is what makes the working class turn to them, or others turn to them. But why doesn't the left actually come in here? What is the weakness of the left all over the world in the current juncture? I think there is an ambivalence as far as the left is concerned. You know, the German literary theorist, very well known, Walter Benjamin, had said that fascism always arises on the basis of a failed workers' revolution. In Germany, after the First World War, there were a series of attempts at a revolution. Rosa Luxemburg, Karl Liebknecht attempted the Spartacus Rising, in which both of them were killed, and subsequently there were other revolutionary attempts. The failure of these revolutionary attempts left the working class as well as the left too kind of, weakened, too weakened, too paralyzed to really cope with the fascist threat. So